So this is a gathering to support Rob Chase. Like I said, Leonard Christian started doing this in December. He's raised money. You've probably seen his signs. You've heard his radio ads. You've done this. You've done that. You know, the whole thing. Rob is behind the 8 ball as far as getting into this race, and he needs your support. But guys, we have, you know, I truly believe we need the 51st state, because I'm not sure, I mean, how do we get a majority of Republicans in the House, let alone the Senate back there in Olympia? And they just run roughshod over our Republicans. So are there things that we can do? Absolutely. I've known Rob Chase for a good number of years. I've been his treasurer. And I've got to tell you, number one, he's extremely honest. He's extremely hardworking. And I got to tell you, when he put up that pledge that he was only going to run for 2 terms as treasurer, and I'm going, but Rob, come on, you gotta. And he says, no, I said 2 terms, and that's all I'm going to do. And, you know, you're going, come on now, because he was a great treasurer. And he was a great treasurer because what he does is he stands up for individual people. And he can tell you the story about the allowing people to pay payments on their property taxes, and what other treasurers in the state of Washington did with that, because they didn't want to go to that extra work. So they didn't adopt that policy. You're going, really? You know, you're all supposed to be representing people and the citizens, and you don't do it. So Rob also spoke, really helped us defeat the Avista, the acquisition of Avista. He'll tell you about that. He looks at overall things. It's not, is it Republican, is it Democrat? It's what is good for the citizens that I represent. So if you want a strong representative and somebody that isn't in there for power, I hope to heck he doesn't do a 2-term commitment thing. Don't want to go through that one again, Rob. But anyway, I know that if he goes back to Olympia, you will be extremely well represented, and, you know, he's going to do what's right, and that's what's important. He's not going to be persuaded by the Republicans who want to do this and that because of a power thing. He's going to do what's right. So Rob, it's my honor to introduce you. I enjoy our friendship. And like I said, you are hardworking, you are honest, and you are a great representative.
Well, thank you so much, Cecily, and thank you and John Charleston, your beautiful place here, putting this on for me. You know, it's a fundraiser. And it's just the way things work, that we have to have the money to win these things. And also my good friend John Christina for many years, my dear friend John Christina, who helped finance this. But you're all my friends, you know, that's why you're invited. Some of you are meeting for the first time, but when I ran against George Nethercutt in 2002, I ran because I knew the Iraq War was going to be a huge mistake. And I knew that although we were going to get a lot of people killed, spend a lot of money, and also he'd broken his term limits pledge too, which kind of rankled me. But I didn't know anybody then. I really didn't have any friends. But now I've got almost more friends than I need. But that's okay. That's a good position to be in. But I'm running because I believe I can be a good representative for the 4th District. I have a reputation for getting things done and keeping my word. On my signs, I was bold enough to put truth matters, because truth really does matter. But, there's kind of a challenge in, having your mind on the federal government and Kathy McMorris, and suddenly 6 weeks ago to change it around, okay, what's going on? And it's become very kind of cloudy. What are we going to do with the COVID virus and what's happened to our state? What legislation is going to come up? I even think the state itself, even Inslee, is kind of in a state of confusion now because of what's happened. And but I would say that, and I have friends that wear the masks, that's fine. But it really should have been up to us whether we wanted to wear the masks or not. America, for the first time in history, America, instead of being ruled by kings, we ruled ourselves. And you don't quarantine the healthy, you quarantine those who are sick. Right. And it's and it's up to an individual decision. So if someone wanted to close their store, that's their choice. But if someone wanted to patronize a store that's open, that's their choice. It's all about choice. It's all about freedom. So the nicest thing you could say is in Washington State that it was a big overreaction to what happened. I think by March, when all these masks started appearing and rules coming out, a lot of medical people were starting to question, was this really much different than any other virus that came out? So one of our problems in the country is we don't really know who to believe. There's so much out there. We're used to being lied to by the mainstream media, and so we go to the internet. But the internet is owned by these big corporations, that are huge too. So that's why I have Truth Matters on my signs. We need to get back to the truth. We need to get back to the basic values. So running for state office, I'm running for 4th District, Washington State Legislature as a representative. There's two words in there that are key. A representative, okay? I represent you, okay? I represent you, the Treasurer's Office, in certain things as far as the collection of taxes and making sure those taxes were safe. But I represent you because the legislature is the one who writes the laws, okay? We're the ones that pass laws. Now, the Supreme Court interprets the laws. The executive, the governor, carries out those laws. But sometimes they walk on ground that should be legislative, and I would be there to prevent that. Fully funding education. Well, education, it even says that's number one. But what does fully funding mean? Is that just public school education, or private schools or charter schools or homeschoolers allowed into that too? It's all very important. The state, of course, created the federal government. The states created the counties. They're right in the middle. And per the 10th Amendment, there's a lot of things that we can do at the state. So I think getting our minds together across the aisle, and we've got these problems here, because what worries me is I think we're close to maybe even a civil war now. I've never seen things so divisive as they are. When we would come together, we would have gatherings like that when I was a kid. We would have picnics, family picnics, and my aunts and uncles would discuss politics, and some would say, well, I'm for Goldwater. Some would say, I'm for Johnson. And then we'd all eat dinner and watch football. Now it's so divisive. I can't believe it. So that's why I worry about the rift that's happening. And, there's a lot of fear out there. I think the younger people are fearful because it's wrong for one generation to hand off a country in worse shape to the next generation. They try not to do that. And I think there's a lot of fear about their future, our younger people. There's fear that the federal government is insolvent. I mean, how can they ever pay back all the money they borrowed? When I ran against George Nettercutt, I thought it was bad then. It was $6.2 trillion. And now it's, 25 trillion? And then Catherine Austin Fitts and Michigan State University found another 21 trillion missing out of just the Department of Defense and HUD. So that's why you need to have more truth and more transparency out there. Along with insolvency is China. China is actually becoming stronger than America. I read a book that there's 17 times in world history there's been two countries that were vying for global power, and 15 of those times they actually came to war, and one of them was defeated. So we don't want to send our youth, into wars. And in fact, that was one thing about the COVID virus. Maybe people at first were right to be worried about it because it looked like it was man-made. Why would anybody want to make something like that? Well, they wanted to weaponize it. So maybe this virus might have kind of been different, but like I said, it kind of, as time went on, it was like a complete overreaction to it. And our country, I don't know if they'll ever be the same again. Some people think, it was bad. Some people think it was normal. Some people think it was a psyops operation. You just don't know what's going on anymore. Who do you trust? It's important to trust people that will keep their word. And we don't have the same values we had, getting back to, the values we used to have when we were kids. Most of our fathers fought in World War II. And when, they were invading Normandy, one would say, well, cover me, I'm going to try to take out that pillbox. The guy didn't say, well, are you Republican or Democrat? We were all Americans then. Right. Yeah, so that has changed too. And, but I like Donald Trump, In 2016, I saw something in him that, hey, here's a guy who really does want to make America great again. I haven't heard that in a long time. So I went out and I did put 4x8 signs up all over the county. It didn't matter where I was in the county. Within a few days, they were torn down. And I knew I had the right guy when that happened. I think I'll be a good legislator because actually I've done legislation. When I was treasurer, I had a lot of guys come into my office and say, gee, I'd like to make partial payments on my property tax. Even the IRS allows you to do that. I say, well, no, sorry, state law, you can only make 2 payments a year, and those on time. Once you haven't made the first one, then you're going to have the danger of foreclosure. So Morgan, don't wander off. I was just about to talk about you. So the guys that come in my office would say, they would talk about that, and they say, well, I don't like the idea either, but if you want to come to Olympia with me, we can get it changed. So Morgan Sanders, one of my dear friends over here, went to Olympia with me. We stayed at the Motel 6 on our own dime. And it took us about 3 years, but we got the law changed finally. But the only way we got it changed was, it was up to the discretion of the county treasurer. And of course, I immediately utilized that and let people make partial payments. And our staff loved it. If people didn't have the right amount, they didn't have to send it back. They could just go ahead and bank it. And we had like 36 procedures our teams had found that we wanted to change, and that solved like 14 of them right off the bat. But the strange thing is, no other treasurers, 39 counties, has done the same thing when they could do the same thing. And so I find that sad. Also, I had wanted to get rid of the payments. The penalties on past due payments. So if you get behind on your taxes, it's 12% interest, okay? But then the second month you're behind, they throw a 3% on. And then the 9th month behind, they throw another 8% on. How'd you like that? So someone who gets behind on their taxes is paying 23% a year. That's usury. So if I go to Olympia, and I pray I do, that'll be one of the first things I start attacking, because the state should be helping people, not making it harder for them. In one area, one department, they're actually trying to help people, maybe in the social welfare departments, but yet they're committing usury in another department. I think the legislatures can see that. Maybe the treasurers can't see that because the Treasurers Association opposed it. But there's 38 other county treasurers. And when I brought these things up the first time at our committee meetings, I lost 38-1 every time. And then, so Morgan and I went to Olympia, a few other people did, and we kept at it. But I learned a lot by doing that. I took Institute on the Constitution classes, which a lot of you guys have taken from Mark Herr. And he got to the 5th class and he said, when you go to a legislator, don't tell them to read a book or bring a huge stack of papers. Write up a white paper. What is the nut? What are you trying to do here? And people had time to do it. By going to Olympia, that was my favorite thing to do. I learned a lot, and it passed, I think, because it's short and simple. And instead of losing unanimously, as I did at the Treasurers Association, the state legislature, the House of Representatives, passed it unanimously. And all but 4 of the state senators voted for it too. So it shows you can do things. You just have to start moving in the right direction. You have to be involved. You have to take the risk. I think I'll also be a good treasurer because I believe in common cause issues. There are some intelligent things, it may not sound like it here, but that the Democrats believe in, that I agree with too. So I'm able to work across the aisle. The first one I worked together on was the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I was worried about losing sovereignty. You would have foreign tribunals making property rights decisions for us. And also I think the Democrats saw us losing good, sustainable labor jobs, blue-collar jobs that we needed going to other countries. And not only that, the Trans-Pacific Partnership was 2,000 pages longer than the Affordable Care Act. And it's supposed to free trade. It's supposed to be simple. I'll give you some of this for some of that, comparative advantage. But it wasn't. Fortunately, Trump got elected and went ahead, and that was one of the very first things he did. He did get rid of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But I made a lot of friends, on the other side of the aisle where we agreed upon those things. And it's wonderful to talk to them. I'd love to be challenged because I'm not always right. So if you can sit down and have coffee with someone and you're both civil and you don't start screaming or anything, I think you can learn a lot of things. I think I can do that with the other side. I also believe on some solutions that may not be Republican solutions. like after this COVID virus, what have we done to our economy? Well, we're going to have to look at some other things. How do we start over again after a reset? I do believe in a state bank, a state infrastructure bank. Now, my friend John Christina there invested all the taxes that weren't ready to be used by the different school districts and the county and the fire districts, and he invested almost like $1 billion, at any given time. Well, we invest in bonds, and well, that was one thing that worried me is having all your eggs in one basket as county treasurer. I said, well, shouldn't we have some more choices than just bonds? We're at the top of historical bond market, historical stock market, historical real estate market. Should we have more diversity in how we invest that? So I think a state bank could invest in infrastructure. If they could, have our own bank, we could do participatory loans for businesses. Maybe a smaller bank, couldn't do that loan, but we could help them out if it passed muster and start creating jobs here again, especially in manufacturing. Maybe we could, get together and the state and the counties and finish the Columbia Basin project, the Ephrata and the Cheney, not the Cheney, but the Quincy aquifers are going dry. And that was about recharging those aquifers with man-made lakes. And we could bring another 600,000 acres of farmland into production that's not being used now. So there's a lot of good things, I think. And also maybe, I think, if we could do it as natural as we could bring salmon, north of the Grand Coulee Dam, back up the Columbia again. Maybe get Spokane Falls, like some of the legends say. So there's a lot of great things we can do that way. So I talked to the spokesman of View yesterday, and he said, well, what are you going to do? Of course, we're not going to have the taxes that we had. We're not going to have the revenue that we had. What kind of ideas? So I brought up the state bank idea as far as getting things going again. But also, there's a great idea from a friend of mine, G.R. Mobley, that we could start taxing the tech companies. All these clicks, they're not being taxed now. I think it might be taxed at the national level, but not at the state level. That would bring in a lot of revenue too. So we have to think outside the box, and we have to talk to people. A lot of people, you don't know who it is, might have just a fantastic idea. So representatives need to talk to people. They represent you. Now, your duty, of course, is to pay us, but your duty is also to inform us, to disagree with us, to tell us when we're out of line too, and that's an important part of that. You don't need someone who's a representative who's going to hold grudges. That's their main reason for running. You don't need someone who might think he might make a few bucks out of it, So I'm proud to have the endorsements of, especially the two most important endorsements I could have gotten. Representative Matt Shea, and this is what he said about me. Rob Chase is a man who will uphold the Constitution and not waver in defending our republic and individual liberties in this trying time. And Representative Bob McCaslin, I wholeheartedly endorse Rob Chase for state representative. He has a proven record of unselfish service, and I'll be proud to serve along with him. So those two endorsements, I think, are worth their weight in gold. The outgoing guy who is very popular would always get like 58, 60%. And also Bob McCaslin, a great family. In fact, like I told you, Bob McCaslin Sr. was the first guy I ran against, as a libertarian. And I had 5%, and that's really, but who were those people that voted for me? That was actually a lot of fun. My wife didn't like it, because I think I spent like $700 doing it. But I did meet, actually, there was another common cause issue. I liked the idea, and I still do, of what they call a fair vote. So it's also called ranked choice voting? Thank you. Ranked choice voting. So say you have 5 people that are running for office. You have a Libertarian, a Green Party, an Independent, and of course a Republican and Democrat. Well, if you like the Green Party person, you might rank them first. That'd be worth its weight in 5 out of 5. And then you like the Democrat next, okay, 4th, then maybe the Independent, then maybe the Libertarian, but you don't have to vote for all of them. Maybe you just vote for the same one. Well, then it calculates everything and throws out the bottom guy until you finally get to the winner. And I think that's a wonderful idea, because then a Constitution Party person or a Green or a Libertarian or an Independent might actually have a chance. You're not wasting your vote. You voted for the guy that you wanted, and then you got to rank. Maybe you can put in a second place thing. So actually I do agree with the Democrats on that, because these two parties just kind of play off each other. And I'm a Republican mainly because they don't, I mean, at least they give lip service to the Constitution. But still, it's like the mayor was telling us, a lot of Republicans, this is a Republican county still. You're going to have Democrats running as Republicans, and that's kind of what happens. In fact, I know a few at the county elected officials who probably are more Democrat than Republican because they know that they're going to be elected that way. In fact, a couple of them probably couldn't even have a conversation with any of you on principles and things because it's just there. They know what to do. They know what to say. And a lot of times it seems like they're voting for the guy who has the biggest budget for advertising, and because so many people are uninformed. Getting back to our school system, I was on the Chase Youth Commission, I think in like late 90s, and I met a young man, a 16-year-old. He said, I think 16-year-olds should have the right to vote. And I said, well, what's the Second Amendment? And he didn't know. I said, well, if you don't have the Second Amendment, you're not going to have the other ones for very long. And we have to get back to that, the basics, of what made our country great. So I know I can be a good representative. I want to make America great again. I want to serve you guys. I know you. I've proven that I keep my word, and I believe that truth matters. And make an affordable donation, whatever you can do, because I think these are important times, and I want to keep us from going over the cliff. Thank you, guys.